And I believe we are live. So, hey, everybody. Thank you for popping in today. And thanks to my co-host for popping in today. It is August 26th here.
What?
Yeah,
July 26th.
I'm in July 26th. My
July
goodness
26th.
gracious, how dumb is that? My sincerest apologies. Hey everybody, how are you today? So my name is Chris Melissinos. I'm the principal evangelist for video games at AWS, not the principal at video games for AWS. I'm having a really difficult time talking this Friday. So I'm going to punt it over to my first co-host, Mr. Takahashi. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Dean Takahashi. I'm the lead writer for GameSpeed Adventure Beat, and I help run the GameSpeed Summit events, and the next one's coming on October 28th to 29th in San Francisco.
Awesome. And right underneath is Susan. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Susan Cummings. I feel like I'm always the one missing from this show. I apologize for that. I'm glad to be here. I run Tiny Rebel Games with my partner in the UK, and look forward to this every week. Seeing your smiling face.
And of course, last but certainly not the least, who do we have with us?
Hey, I'm Mark DeLoura. I'm a game and education developer, old fart, eternal optimist. Nice to be here.
And it's great to have everybody together. And again, you know, if you're just joining the program right now, go ahead and repost this link on all of the socials, please. Just to kind of help get the word out there. But yeah, I'm super excited to see you all. We got a quorum this week, and but I've been dealing with technical issues around the program. I was lamenting to Dean before we started here that you know, sometimes computers try to help us by loading a patch. I know that we experienced that globally with a patch that went out and basically borked every system on the planet for a couple of days. But I updated Windows and it went, oh, hey, none of these mixer and audio inputs are correct. Let me help you and just reset them all to default for you. And I was like, what?
How are we ever going to trust patches again, I guess?
Yeah. Well, isn't that the ongoing discussion we just have in the industry overall? But anyway, we got it resolved about an hour ago. And so everything is working. So hooray for that. So I didn't have a lot of chance to really look up a lot of news. So I'm going to go punt directly over to Dean, who leads us in with important news of the week. So Mr. Takahashi.
Well, I'd say probably one of the biggest new pieces of news this week is the SAG-AFTRA talent union in Hollywood has called for on strike against the video game companies over the issue of AI. They've been in negotiations for 18 months, and the union basically said, you know, it's time for us to resolve this, and they're on strike. The game industry companies that include like EA and Take-Two, they responded saying they're disappointed because the union walked away when they were so close to a deal. They say they've found common ground on 24 out of 25 proposals so far, and that includes requiring consent and fair compensation to all workers, you know, dealing with AI protections, I guess. So anyway, they're on strike. And
Yeah,
it's you know, it comes the same week as well, you know, with other big news, which is
Blizzard.
Under Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. Now there's a union at the World of Warcraft team for 500 staffers there, and then 241 workers over at the Bethesda Game Studios, also unionized last week. So lots of unionization news here going on in the game industry.
The SAG one always sits weirdly with me. You know, when I was at Take-Two, this was 15, 16 years ago. It always comes back. And I support everyone's rights, but the audio thing, maybe this is a controversial thing to say. I think that audio is important to games and voiceovers are important to games, but they're not fundamental to the games in the way they are to like movies and television and stuff like that. And so, because back when this was about royalties and minimum royalties and stuff for actors, and we were trying to explain that it doesn't make any sense. It's too hard to make money off of a video game, and we shouldn't be paying royalties for someone putting their voice on a character in it. And so I feel like it's all tied up in the same thing. So I'm annoyed, and especially when they got so close to a deal, they should have just taken the deal, because I don't know that I really think they deserve a deal. Am I being an asshole?
No, we don't have any information about the deal points. Like I find it weird that somebody said, well, because of one deal point, we're not going to agree to this. I'm like, well, what was that? Do you want to share? But I know, these kind of deals you talk about in the back room and sort out together. Some of it I can understand, but I don't care who's like I want a high quality voice certainly for my characters, but I don't care if it's somebody famous. I just want somebody who's good. So.
All right. Well, here's the counterpoint to that. Then is what about a Nolan North?
Who's that?
Nolan North.
Nathan Drake.
Call of Duty.
Sorry, I always play anymore.
Troy Baker's in everything.
All the games I play, I don't know who's
right.
I would argue they're famous because of Call of Duty, not vice versa.
Okay. I mean, look, I just called out the one that is famous in addition to being in these games. So Nathan Drake from Uncharted. Right. It's how do we, what happens to somebody who just kind of replicates that voice because they don't want to be compensated? And there was a conversation about the voice actress that played Bayonetta and how they were compensated and kind of all this stuff. And this came out a while ago. So, I mean, look, I think in taking the contrary point, if this is their livelihood and their livelihood is their voice, being able to, and there are tools or things that can serve to displace them, not because the quality is necessarily better, because the cost is going down. I can't fault them for wanting to preserve rights around who they are and how their voice is used.
I think
how is that any different from sound-alikes? How is that any different from sound-alikes? I mean, that's a tried and true thing in the game industry, is using a sound-alike. It wasn't AI generated, but the point of the sound-alike is to sound like the real actor, and that was never, I don't think, a contention. So why, when a computer generates it, is it a contention?
I mean, I think there's two different interesting sort of scenarios that I've heard described, and one is, do you need the actor's permission when you generate voices and words that is in the actor's voice, but the actor never said, right? And so like you get the rights in perpetuity to just keep on generating dialogue for an NPC or something like that. And the actor has no say in how their voice is used, and it is still sort of portrayed as this is a performance of that actor. The other thing that's interesting is that the AI people say, well, we can open up opportunities for the actor, like the actor can still get paid for those kinds of things. Plus, we can sort of translate that actor's voice into another language and have something happen that was never possible before, which is that actors could get paid for the Chinese language version use of their voice or something. So
that's interesting. That's
like more revenue opportunity for the actor in that case.
Yep.
So
that's super cool, and I like that.
So very interesting sort of possibilities that happen with AI, right? But also lots of protection that has to happen too. So.
Yeah, I'd be curious on what it is that it's holding folks up, because a lot of it just seems like very logical. Like you don't, like a professional voice actor, you don't have the right to generate audio without their permission. You don't have the right to translate into another language without their permission. Like it's at the end of the day, if you're using somebody who's in SAG-AFTRA, like there are a bunch of things you should do just because you're like a good person,
Mm.
right? Like what is the sticking point is unclear to me. Maybe it's more conversation around what the remuneration is, or I don't know. I wish I knew.
I'd say the disappointing thing here is that SAG-AFTRA went on strike with Hollywood, movie studios, TV studios. Was it last year, right? And they resolved it. They came to a solution. Why aren't they not? Why is the game industry not sort of converging onto the same solution? The voice actors here. I don't understand that
question. Yeah, it's a fair question.
Yeah. So, I'll adjust it slightly. There was this, I forget the company, but it was basically this vice president who got up and said, oh, with this new AI voice generation, look, now I can speak in all these different languages. And, she was talking, and then you heard her voice in all these different languages. And I'm like, that's great. What happens when you go and give a talk at one of those countries and you can't speak their language? Like, it feels disingenuous, right? It's like, do I need that person's voice, right, to be translated into all these different languages instead of using, somebody from that region or something, right? And from there to actually have those conversations, or just do a translation. Like, I get it. It's cool. It's very, very cool. But it's like, look at me. I can speak all these languages. Like, no, you can't. You can't speak all these languages.
I thought you were converting this podcast. I thought you were doing like the real-time streaming in Spanish for us.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Maybe I was confused.
Except the voice font, if you remember that phrase, that we're going to use, font. It's all going to be done in Dean's voice. All of us now sound like Dean in 8 different languages.
It doesn't sound like Hatsune Miku or something like that. One of those anime voices.
Exactly.
Well, it's an interesting week for unions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, where the tech is going to land, but it definitely feels like it is a good thing to sort of resolve it now, as opposed to waiting until some of these things just start getting used in some way. And figure it out later on. I think figuring it out now is a good idea.
Yeah, agree.
I understood like the lines between, like, I don't really understand how all this works well enough, but like for a large company that's using a name, like Anjali or somebody like this, who's under SAG-AFTRA, you have to deal with the SAG-AFTRA constraints and systems and those costs. So for an independent game developer who like can't afford to do that but still wants to have voiceover, like I don't think there should be any constraints on what it is that they use. I don't think legally you can put constraints on what they use. If they want their friend to do voiceover, fine, right?
Right.
I would hate to see some kind of reflection of like a system generated inside of the union constraints, then reflected and raising costs on all the independent game studios. Like, I would not. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But
well, you don't have to use SAG talent. If it's your friend, that's obviously not SAG talent. I don't know if SAG forces you to only use SAG talent if you're using. I don't remember.
That's what I'm.
I think there might have been something. Yeah.
I think there might have been something like that. To me, that would be a sticking point in any kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Agreed.
Number 25.
Agreed. Yeah. So the thing with all of this, Lee and I have been talking a hell of a lot about generative AI and talking to a lot of companies in the space over the last few weeks for various reasons. And I'm of the opinion, look, that there's always going to be the God of Wars, use that as a blanket example, Uncharted, Call of Duty. None of that's going to get replaced by generative AI in our lifetimes, I don't think. It's the blockbuster, right? But on the indie end of the spectrum, if it's suddenly possible to do games with smaller teams because of all these tools, I have to think that that's a good thing, that there has to be room for that end. And you've seen it with Manor Lords and Stardew Valley. They didn't use AI, but they made a game with one person, and that's really effing cool, as anyone who's ever managed a big studio knows. And so I worry that there's so much pushback and fear around this that we're kind of missing the fact that right now it's incredibly hard to fund a game. And if there's suddenly a way of doing it in a more fiscally responsible way that doesn't require scaling up big teams only to let them go and so forth. But that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, the one person band is possible.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
There definitely, I mean, there are already some companies like with 5 people or less that are doing the daily sort of trivia game things. Like Low Snack is one example, right? And they're using AI to generate games that can be created very quickly. As soon as they have the idea for it, they're generating the game. And um, you know I think they're finding some kind of traction and growth right now. Putting games onto media sites like GamesFeed, but also like I think BuzzFeed and some others. So so it's interesting to
and that's the place that you're not seeing a lot yet, right? It feels to me like most of the companies that we're seeing in the game industry in generative AI are making some variation on smart NPCs.
Right.
To the point that I want to no offense to anyone making those things. I'm sure some of them had it as an original idea, but I kind of want to put a bullet to my brain if I hear about another one. And I'm surprised at how little we're hearing about people wanting to use generative AI to make games, like to figure out how that actually becomes an integral part of the process as opposed to just time saving. That's something I'm passionate by personally right now.
Yeah, I think
another recently they raised some money around that, right?
What's that?
There was a company that just raised some money around that. They said we're gonna make tools, generative AI tools for making games that aren't NPCs. I can't remember who that was.
Yeah. That's what I want to hear. Yeah. Was that the actual catchphrase? We're not making NPCs.
I think it was Artificial Agency last week raised $60 million for like behavioral AI in games.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah. But I mean, even like sorry, my speakers are too. Sorry about that,
You're
Chris.
good.
I mean, like the games themselves. Like, when are we going to start seeing some developers saying we're building a game and it fundamentally builds on generative AI? As opposed to platforms and the tools and stuff for it.
Well, I mean, companies have tried. Keywords famously came out and said, we spent 6 months using latest state-of-the-art AI tools, and guess what? Can't build a game using them. Like, you can build pieces of a game, but you can't
It's going to take time, yeah. It's going to take time. But...
Yeah. Can't is a word that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take iteration.
Yes, they said with current tools, it can't be done. Yeah, and they said actually the recommendation that they've said, and I'll try to find the article, and they came back and said that the recommendation that they got from the tools was to use these different companies that could do this. It was like 7 other partners that they would outsource pieces to. It's like, well, if we're doing that, like, why are we using the tools at all, right? Which is pretty interesting. I mean, we also still have to deal with, right stuff and things like that. But as we talked about in multiple episodes, is I think once we get to smaller, really focused LLMs where we can, see the data that's going in there and then kind of sanitize that and say, no, this is all built on identifiable content. Even if you can't say the output is made from these individual pieces, we should be able to be transparent about the input into the LLM, right? And I think that then raises the comfort level for everybody.
NVIDIA is already there launching a bunch of LLMs with licensed material in them. So I think that sort of Wild West is starting to go away, I guess. So, meanwhile, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is delayed again from September to November 20th. So Stalker 2 is like the 4th actual Stalker game, has been in the works for more than a decade. And the last few, I guess, couple of reasons for the delay had to do with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because the game is being made in Ukraine, right? And so they've had a sort of a huge odyssey here trying to bring this game home. Couple more months now for people to wait. So November 20th is just sort of barely hanging on to the end of the launch season for AAA games there. So. So let's see if they get it out. It's funny, they said the bugs that they're trying to squash are due to unexpected anomalies. It feels like the sort of like the content of the game is creeping out into the
I'm gonna use that in the future. There've been some unexpected anomalies.
That's the name of my next video.
Hashtag unexpected anomalies.
That is a good video game name. Damn.
They're escaping from the zone into the real world.
That's right. The sequel is Unintended Consequences. Right.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, how can you have a sequel to it though? That's the problem. Now it's an unexpected anomaly.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. All right.
Speaking of sort of AI again, Freestyle Chess raised $12 million in funding for a chess tournament series.
Yeah, let's pop that on the browser there.
Magnus Carlsen, the chess legend, is part of it. So more of that. Lots of chess startups are happening because of AI related tools. So there was another one last week as well. So let's see.
Which I think that's really cool, that we're seeing the stuff. And in fact, I was doing some research about different, websites and online games, stuff like that. Like chess.com is massive. Like the number of people playing. Of course, the Queen's Gambit, once that came out, right, that just made, chess explode again. In fact, after that, I 3D printed a chess set for home because I realized I didn't have one. Right? And yeah, really, really cool. Good to see them getting funding for it, right? Chess is awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if you guys are watching the House of the Dragon. I'm caught up on the episodes now. But at the beginning of that, they always advertise the Game of Thrones game. And so that's it's interesting to see that sort of directly tying in the content from like episodes into things you can chat about or talk about in the Game of Thrones game.
Yeah.
Also, they announced this week that Kit Harington is joining the Zynga game, Game of Thrones Legends, which is now available. Jon Snow is back in that game. So
Jon Snow is back.
Yeah.
And he's got some fire for your ass. All right. With that coming to a screeching halt, I wish I had a record skip. I got this one though.
Well, excuse me.
There we go. Even better than a record scratch. All right. What else is on the top of your mind, Dean?
Netflix made some news. So Mike Verdu was the sort of the founding sort of head of Netflix's games business.
Yeah.
And did it for a few years now, and he is moving on into a different role. And they hired Alain Tascan as the president of Netflix Games now.
Pretty great.
So Alain was the executive vice president of game development at Epic Games, and I used to talk to him a lot when he was over at Ubisoft as well, out in Montreal. And he was also at Electronic Arts. So long career for Alain, and he will be running it out of I think the Bay Area. So
yeah, very cool. Well, I mean, speaking of which, have you all tried have you tried playing the Netflix games on TV now through like either a Fire Stick or a smart TV or anything like that?
I haven't tried that yet.
Okay, so I finally went ahead and started messing about with it. And when you fire up the app from your phone, it's like, oh, do you want this to be your controller? You hit yes, and boom, it becomes the controller controlling the game. And as you move into different scenes, the controller layout will change. And it actually worked seamlessly. I was very impressed with how good it was. I started playing Oxenfree with it. And so now I want to know, is this all pixel streaming? Is this some web rendering too? Like, what are they doing here, right? But it was very, very slick. They've done a really good job with it.
I saw a demo too of the Samsung's latest TVs where they have that as well. Um, they have the Samsung Gaming Hub cloud games there, and yeah, you can play these console-like games without a console. You're getting it streamed into your big 4K TV, and then you can control some of these games with your phone as well. And so, like a trivia game is one example they have that's landed. So, yeah, very interesting. And they see it as another form of accessibility, which is we're reaching people who would never touch a game controller.
Right.
So,
which is the right move. It's not about replacing the hardware you have. It's about augmenting the ability to use it, right? Which I think, as we all know, is one of the tougher things that pixel streaming and cloud streaming of games had faced, right? It's like, stop telling people they don't have to go buy an Xbox, right? Okay, because they're still going to, because you're going to have people that are like, this is 120 hertz at HDR10 with Dolby Atmos. Like, that's still a huge part of the culture. This is another opportunity to engage. And I think it's the right approach. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Let's see. Another sad piece of news was Humble Games was a publishing division, sort of sister division of Humble Bundle. And Humble Games laid off all of its staff this week, 36 people or so, I think.
Yeah.
And they had tried to sell this division, which seemed a bit out of place inside the media giant, Ziff Davis. They're the owners of IGN and Eurogamer and GamesIndustry.biz and all that. And there was this game publishing division, right alongside Humble Bundle, which is the charity-focused version. Humble Bundle itself did not get affected by this, but yeah, the game studios or the game publishers no more.
Yeah. Mark, Susan, did you read it? Did you read about this?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Spire.
It doesn't seem like the bloodletting is letting up this year.
Yeah, but it's also a good cautionary tale of, I write about video games, therefore I must understand how to build them. So let me go do it. I think, the comment coming back out was, no, this is a restructuring. But the whole team was laid off.
I know. I saw that quote too. Yeah.
Everybody got into an argument about what does restructuring mean.
Yeah. And I would think for a company that writes for a living, like
we can do better than that, yeah.
Right.
No, that's why they did it. They're like, oh, we can manipulate words to be whatever we want them to be. Sure, restructuring. It's not shut sure down. We're all still philosophically aligned with it. That means it's not shut down, right? All the people are gone, but what are you gonna do? Actually, that kind of reminds me of the other story that I'm sitting here reading, which is about the Microsoft DEI team getting shut down, which I haven't really. I'm trying to identify exactly what team this is and who these people are. There's just an article on IGN about it getting shut down, and the comment that basically like this team did great work, and now like the DEI has sort of been spread throughout the company, so there's no need for a dedicated team anymore, which is a great press release. But
sorry, are you mentioning? Was it Microsoft? I missed that part.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a clarification on this story, right? So like it broke as sort of like a kind of a rumored story or a leak of like Microsoft, killed their D&I team. They call it D&I as opposed to DEI, right? And so it took a while for Microsoft to actually generate the response to this, but they. What they said was, we laid off 2 people in one team, the D&I team.
Really?
The rest of the company still has a wide variety of D&I teams,
focus people
that are still operating. And then,
so it's blown out
I
of
think
proportion.
they say that they continue to be committed to it, but this was about a week later. That they kind of finally came up with all the information, and they did so through like a LinkedIn post. by one of the D&I leaders. And so I think they lost the news cycle there.
I missed that part.
For a while, I think they must have been figuring out, like, hey, did we shut down a DI division?
Maybe they're trying to figure it out. It is a big company.
Everybody's going, no, it wasn't us. It wasn't us. So apparently, they did, lay off a couple of people, and then they say that their sort of commitment to DI is still there. So interesting. All right. Have you guys heard of Illuvium? It's a Web3 game company.
Web3.
Yeah. So they had a press release this week that said they were the fastest growing game studio in history, and I was going, I'm not exactly sure about that. But what they did was pretty impressive, and that was 4 years ago they did a token sale. They raised a bunch of money, $100 million to. It's sort of in the heyday of NFTs, right? And then they went to work on making games. And this week they're launching 3 games, 3 Web3 games, all in the same sort of universe, where you can buy things and you can move your assets between the 3 different games, right? And they said, like they're in Sydney, Australia, and the company was started by 3 brothers, and they said that their original intention was to build one title, but being 3 brothers and highly competitive, we couldn't agree on the genre and ended up building 3 different games. and they say we've wiped a collective 30 years off our lifespan, so we hope it was worth it.
Yeah, I have the browser. I have the web page up here. I've not heard of them, but you said it's 3 brothers.
Yeah. Kieran Orak and his brothers, and I think they've amassed 250 people. So that was the part where they said, over 4 years, we built a team of 250 people.
Interesting.
I don't think that's the fastest growing game company ever.
It makes for a nice press release, and it got us to.
It's pretty respectable, right?
Yeah,
so it is essentially a AAA team. Across 3 different games there, and $100 million in their coffers.
Yeah, well, it got us to pull up their.
See how this does.
Yeah, it got us to pull up their webpage, right? So we're looking at it right now. And of course, when you said 3 brothers, of course, for me, it's always a Beastie Boy reference. These are 3 bad brothers you know so well. Okay, very interesting. I'm going to have to go ahead and take a look at this. Yeah, in Web3 and blockchain, we're still trying to find the traction for building that type of interoperability of assets and stuff across these things. So it'll be interesting to go check them out.
Atari came out with a deal with Coinbase, which I see more sort of press releases these days on Web3 game companies working with Coinbase on their base blockchain, which has access to 100 million wallets that Coinbase has created.
Yeah, people seem pretty excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Asteroids and Breakout are coming to blockchain via Coinbase now.
But doing what?
Sort of a summer season of games that Coinbase has going, and Asteroids and Breakout will be playable within that.
I'm assuming you were tokens or something for playing, Chris, or something like that.
Interesting.
I was waiting for another version of Asteroids to play.
No, they're just going to do texture swaps with Bitcoin on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
See? Yeah.
My frustration with the space is it went full circle back to tokens, back to the same stuff that they were talking about 2 years ago, which was a bad idea 2 years ago. And somehow it's like everyone fell asleep and skipped that. And they're like, hey, we have this new idea, play to earn. It's like, yeah, it's a really bad idea 2 years ago. It's still a really bad idea. So it's kind of why I've run from the space, because I don't think that it has any more tricks up its sleeve than play to earn tokens.
Play to earn is a job. That's
yeah. So don't get me wrong. I think that there are really good use cases for blockchain.
Yes,
but I don't think what
agreed.
we're seeing are those good use cases.
Agreed. I agree 100%. It reminds me, back when we did the Art of Video Games, Mike, when we were interviewing him, he was like talking about why video games are so important. He's like, watching a movie, your skill that you obtain may be learning to eat popcorn, but when you're playing a game, like you're learning, directions and how to read a map and, and all these other things.
And eye coordination.
Yes, exactly. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
The difference now is that there are some hits that have arrived. The blockchain game companies. Pixels is one good example of well over 1 million players, and they're kind of like the new Axie Infinity because they're very popular in the Philippines again, and that's where all the whole blockchain sort of phenomena took off with Axie Infinity and Play to Earn, and this Pixels has a better constructed economy than Axie Infinity, which was more like a kind of a Ponzi structure, right? And so this kind of game seems like it might be, have learned the lessons from a few years ago, and then they're launching into more mainstream markets where, as I mentioned, there's a lot of crypto wallets now.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned
not mass.
Well, you mentioned Pixos, and so I hadn't heard of it, so I went to look it up, and instead, Mark is probably online to see, but I got to the Pixos 3D, 2D trays and 4-chamber pen coloring kit for kids. So clearly a different Pixos. And it's
computer pixel, right?
Oh, this is $17.99, so you two can make pixel-based art.
Awesome.
The problem, though, the problem with the ones that are successful, and I feel like I'm being very negative about Web3 lately. The problem with most of these is what I'm seeing anyway and hearing is most of it's around airdrops. And so it's not difficult to get to these numbers if you basically pay them in their wallet. And so where we're seeing these like sort of day 30 retention numbers, a lot of them are sort of gaming that by airdropping and sort of obviously you're going to come back and collect your thing. I mean, like in fairness, it's not that different from a mobile game that gives you stuff for coming back every day, but it doesn't necessarily mean an engaged user. It means, somebody who's collecting money.
Here's another one related to bananas and like the biggest pivot of all time for a game company. I think, I don't know if you guys know Michael Mumbauer. He was on the Sony side of big development projects like The Last of Us and Uncharted, and went off to start a game company. He left that one and then joined this one, Lethos, and was partnering with John Garvin, one of the makers of the zombie game. Anyway, they got together to make something called Ashfall, which is a AAA narrative-driven open world game for the PC that was going to use Web3 tech, and they pivoted to a clicker game. So they said that there's just no real environment for startups now to be tackling these huge $100 million AAA games because the funding that was available for these kinds of things really isn't there anymore. And so in the meantime, they switched to a new universe called No One Is Safe, and then they created this clickbait title that resembles Bananas. I don't know if you guys have heard of Bananas on Steam.
Yes.
So it's a big hit where you just click and then you get rewards for various games. I don't know, I forget what it was, Counter-Strike or something. Right? So it's just something that you keep going on like your laptop, or you're playing something on your desktop or something.
Right.
You keep clicking away, and so this clickbait game is something that they hope will get traction and go viral, and then help them with creating the universe in this No One Is Safe sort of environment. And to be fair, it's not just a clicker, because they did design some interesting characters around this. The one chatbot that they created is called Rant CPU, and it sort of reminds me of the character in Borderlands.
Yeah, the robot.
Yeah, the little robot.
Oh my goodness, why am I blanking his name? He's being voiced by Jack Black, right, in the movie.
Yeah. So, very interesting, gigantic pivot for these guys to go from a AAA title down to something which is a clicker game, and in hopes of eventually getting around to the big Ashfall sort of narrative game, which is they're publishing in comic book form for a while, and then hoping to turn into a game down the road, a big game down the road.
Yeah. I mean, look, the comment about, it's, smaller studios to be able to make these $100 million games. Well, yeah, independent movie studios can't do a Marvel movie, right? I mean, okay. And you don't need to build a $100 million game to find success. And that's the trend that we've been seeing lately, right? At least over the past year plus, is these smaller games coming out with massive audiences. And you don't have to necessarily make $1 billion to be successful, live a happy life, run a profitable company, all these things. There was an article that was just done about, it was Amir Satvat went ahead and posted an interview with Jesse Schell about how he's been able to keep his company running for like 22 years or whatever, and don't lay people off. And he talks about, know how to expand, like make sure you're transparent, let everybody, it's these sorts of things. So it depends what you want to pivot to. Now, whether or not clicker games are games, banana exploding, and then we saw it post all over LinkedIn. They've seen to hack this whole thing. No, they didn't. They created a toy that you clicked on, and everybody went nuts for it because that's all you did was do this, right? Ian Bogost with Cow Clicker, Cookie Clicker back in the day, right? And Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but Ian's whole thing was just to show how ridiculous this is. He went ahead and built it, but then he added these things to it that just made him money, right? So it's really stretching the definition of game, right?
You mean to say that there's a big, wide area between like making clicker games and like making an MMO? There's a palette, if you will.
Let's make a clicker MMO. That is right there.
Wait,
we're on to something.
Have you played Lumberjack Heroes yet?
No.
No? So it's a clicker metaverse. It's in Fortnite.
Interesting.
Look at that. We barely got the comment out. We barely got the comment out. Somebody already stole it.
By the way, the metaverse is not dead. It is revised. And that is what we hear about Matthew Ball's second edition of his metaverse book, which came out this week. And the book is actually 70% different than what it was before, because he added all these chapters and replaced things. Like he totally rewrote the chapter on blockchain, and he added a new one about AI, and just so much sort of changed with how the metaverse is viewed. I think now that he had to go basically and just redo the whole thing and make it a bit more tied to sort of the real world of where the metaverse is. But he did post sort of equally interesting. It was he got Tim Sweeney of Epic Games and Neil Stephenson together for the first time to do a joint sort of interview with him about the metaverse, and he posted that this week, and that was very interesting as well.
That was
you saw some opinions flying from those guys about metaverse topics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted to make sure I didn't gloss over this news. A piece of news that popped up since we were talking about Fortnite is Look North World just raised $4.5 million in new funding, right? Or overall funding, I should say, right? Alex Seropian's company.
Yeah, this was a $2.25 million round.
Yeah, and so he's like, hey, we're we are now just focused on building experiences and constantly refining and getting them out. So it's great to see him continue to build and grow there. That's awesome.
And I have not tracked them, but I wrote about them in the very beginning when they launched their first game, but they've launched 7 games now on UEFN, on Fortnite. And one of them was like a mod. I guess this was for Fortnite, but a mod for Ark Survival that had Power Rangers in it. And so it was under license from Hasbro. And this has gotten them like something like 800,000 downloads or so. And so Alex said, Soropian, the CEO, had said that the company was profitable already, but they still raised this round anyway.
Right.
And they have 15 games in the works. Like 5 are original, 5 are branded, and 5 are creator driven. And so
Nice.
Basically all user generated content in a fast growing platform.
Yeah. All right. So before we jump into the next news story, I have to say, as soon as you mentioned Power Rangers, if you're on Steam or what have you, go ahead and check out Digital Eclipse's new Power Rangers game that's coming out. It looks insane. It is so unbelievably beautiful. And just, I mean, they're leaning into all of the sprite scaling stuff from Sega back in the day. So everything is like massive sprites moving around the field and massive explosions and multiple types of gameplay all in one adventure. It's awesome. It looks absolutely cool. Yeah, really, really cool. But then the next news piece I wanted to bring up, and then whatever other news people have here, is Hasbro, right, made the announcement about becoming mostly like a digital play company. And there was some discussion, I think, about them possibly acquiring Mattel and doing these things. But their goal is to really focus on digital play, which I get, but also makes me a little sad because we still need physical play, right, in the world. Not that they're abandoning it, but it remains to be seen what happens there.
Yeah, that's what happens when you put a gamer in charge of the whole company.
Yes.
Magic the Gathering guy, and he's running all of Hasbro. Yep. By contrast, Mattel is, I don't know exactly where they are, but Mike DeLoura was in charge of their digital game business, and he left Mattel recently. And so
a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they still have some games coming, like there's a Barbie game coming this fall.
Right.
But yeah, I detect some difference between who's a toy company and who's a game company.
Yeah.
Right.
And Wizards has a new head coming out of Blizzard too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. What's his name? Height. John Height. John Height? Is that right?
Yeah. So that was news that happened this week as well.
Yeah.
And, very interesting. Yeah. Blizzard's what was it, the World of Warcraft guy, John Height.
Yeah. John Height, right? Yeah.
And
it
makes you. I guess it makes you wonder what's going on the Blizzard side still.
For sure.
See how they're going to sort of emerge in the new world here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Multiversus was popular, and so Warner Brothers has gone and acquired the studio that made it. So we have some actual M&A activity going on again. Player First Games made the platform fighter Multiversus, and Warner Brothers acquired them. And they had the interesting story because they launched Multiversus to good success of like 20 million downloads in beta form, and then they decided, you know what, this is not working as a free-to-play game for us right now, and so they shelved it and took it down, and then worked on it for like quite a long time again, and then Player First relaunched it recently this year, and it's doing well. So very interesting that they would take down a game and then rebuild it and then put it back up, and now it's successful.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, Susan, before we also get to the end of the hour, is there any other big stories that are in your brain space that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I just got distracted. I've been quiet for 10 minutes because I forgot something, which is the Kids Online Safety Act,
Oh,
COSA, in the U.S. that I think is going to go up for a vote. I thought it was going to go up for a vote yesterday, but I'm looking around trying to see any confirmation that happened, and I'm not seeing that. So there's an update to COPA in the works, and there's this Kids Online Safety Act. The idea is to have very restrictive rules on larger media platforms around what kids are able to see and do. And so how do you verify who a kid is? There's an age verification process, which, as you all know, is easily
Nightmare.
easily a nightmare at the moment. And there's some concern around the constraints around the types of speech that are classified as being appropriate for kids or not, and whether you're going to find kids who are trying to explore conversations around their gender or things like that suddenly don't have access to those communities on the web anymore. And so the ACLU is against it, DFF is against it, but there are lots and lots of it. This seems like one of those bills that your constituency's never going to say don't vote for it, right? Because it's for the kids, so of course you're going to vote for it,
right.
But there are a lot of details in it that seem like they may reflect back into us in the games industry. So I just recommend people kind of learn about it, educate themselves about it, and keep an eye on it, because we may have to deal with it later.
Yeah, well, I just pulled it up, and almost all of the text has been stricken. If you look,
there's a related story here. With Bloomberg dropped a very long investigative story on predators in Roblox, and so it's a sort of a problem that they have not been able to squash. There's still lots of parents out there who are offering warnings about how their kids were harassed in various ways on the Roblox platform. So
difficult issues.
Very, because it's not just limited to games. I mean, this is the existential problem that we have with open, free communication, right? And so, what we do, we have to need to continue to understand how to best protect and sift the information, so that way people that are most vulnerable and kids and stuff like that are protected in ways that you can't always be there to see what they're doing, right? But something industry, I know we all take very seriously because it's important,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. One more news item. One more news item was that the funding numbers from Convoy Ventures came out this week. And they noted that about $690 million went into game companies in Q2. This is down from $2.19 billion in Q1, because that included the Disney investment of $1.5 billion in Epic. But this number, $690 million, at least is up from $599 million a year ago. So kind of a mixed picture. Like, things are kind of going down, but in some ways they're also going up, and there is activity. There's 104 deals closed in Q2, which is down 22% from Q1 and down 12% from the same quarter last year, but still somewhat respectable, I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the point. When you remove the anomalies from it, it's not going down. Like, there continues to be more investment that's happening. It may not have happened at the same rate, right? But when you, like you said, when you pull out that Disney money, which was a material investment that outpaced everybody else, the numbers are still up and to the right. So we continue to go through
the problem though is the stages. Like, it's unsurprising, I think, that investment is picking up, because loads and 10,000 plus people have been laid off. So there's obviously like brand new pre-seed seed opportunities to invest in these teams. The problem is that's the new shiny stuff now. So the people who are like was sitting between Series A and B that raised 2 years ago, they're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
And that continues to be the case. They're not shiny anymore, and they don't have metrics, and they have big valuations. And so that's my concern, is that a lot of new stuff is getting funded, and then the older stuff is sort of getting kicked to the curb.
Susan, are you assuming that did they add exactly? Did they add it? No. Are you saying that if you're going to invest, you need to invest for the long term and stick with something instead of constantly being distracted by a shiny object in the corner? Oh, I was just double checking.
I know. I think VCs are learning that when you try to play game publisher, it's hard. It's really hard to pick content. There's a reason they used to not do it.
There's also more companies trying to raise all their money in one round now, right? And so like before the model was like, oh, okay, you hit your milestones and we'll give you more money. But that has turned out to be disastrous because of the sort of VCs turning off the spigot, right? And so people got halfway through their games and then they don't get the money for the other half. And so one of these companies, NPC Labs, they raised $18 million this week. And another sort of mainstream games to Web3 company, kind of like a discovery platform. And they had 3 people. They have 3 people. They're building on top of Base, the Coinbase thing. So it's like $6 million per person here.
Good job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Make that money, make it quick.
But one of the things they said was, we're trying to raise everything all at once so that we never have to raise
everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. If you can do it, do it.
Yeah. No, agreed. Well, I think, Dean, you glossed over the biggest news piece that you had on GameSpeed. I'm going to pop up in the browser. It is the Deadpool and Wolverine designed controllers.
That movie was great. I saw it yesterday. Great film. It was a lot of fun.
Susan, have you seen?
You were going to talk about Cybertruck going into.
I saw that too.
Rocket League.
Oh yeah, whatever. I don't know if any of the cars break down or rust in Fortnite. But so the Deadpool and Wolverine. Susan, I don't know if you've seen the controller, but it was.
I have not.
Designed by Deadpool. I have the image up here. It was a hard-hitting news piece here, and it just says "designed by Deadpool" on it, which is just hilarious. It's just hilarious.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, easy to hold on to, I guess.
The problem is that I see that controller. I see that controller, and I'm like, yeah, that's Ryan Reynolds, just all over that. The Deadpool design.
Good job for whoever came up with that idea and saw it all the way through. Way to go.
That's amazing.
Yes, video games.
Through most of the news now here.
Yeah, we have. So what is everybody playing? Are we playing? Let's go around the horn here. Dean, what are you playing lately?
I'm still playing my World War II strategy game, Unity of Command 2. And I think I'm getting near 50 hours in on it now.
Very nice. Very cool. Susan, how about you? Have you had time to play?
Not a lot, but my son has rediscovered Rock Band, and we had to buy a brand new guitar. He's picked up a Fender, one of the Fender ones. It's because our guitars all broke, eventually, and we bought a drum set. And Lanyon is now up to expert on drums, so I think he wants to start taking drum lessons alongside his trumpet lessons. But so there's a lot of Rock Banding going on in the house, and Lee bought a bunch of games for us on Steam sale, and this is going to sound ridiculous. We've been playing a bunch of Bloon 6 because I do love a tower defense game, and there's a lot in that game. That's a crazy mammoth, bit of gameplay. But otherwise, I have not had much time.
Yeah,
that sounds amazing. I love the Rock Band part.
Yeah, and especially playing all together,
Yeah.
Was that?
Right.
And if you're playing all together, right? That's the point, right? Make it memorable.
Yeah, I suck at Rock Band. I can sing at Rock Band. I don't have the hand-eye coordination.
Sing. That makes you the valuable person because nobody ever wants to sing.
Yeah, I do the singing.
Yeah. But if you saw all the pictures,
I'm lucky to get through medium on guitar. I'm terrible.
Yeah, but if you see all of the pictures from years gone by of GDC suite parties with Rock Band in it, it's fantastically terrible.
But the big thing we've been doing is we've been designing, I think I told you, a collectible card game. We're 2/3 of the way through it. Like we're gonna start like playtesting it with family.
Oh.
It's been so much fun. Oh yeah.
We're family.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Oh, absolutely.
I was
I discovered this tool called Dexterous, which allows you to lay out the cards. I don't know if you played with this, Chris? Fantastic. What a great tool.
Yeah, that and Tabletop Simulator too. I'd been messing about.
And you
with
can
too.
export straight to Tabletop Simulator. I was looking at. So
maybe
we'll do that so everyone can play.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe we even do a live stream of a playthrough at some point. That'd be great.
That would be fantastic.
I have to head out. I'm gonna go get on a call here, but the last thing I wanted to mention was this Elden Ring streamer who beat the Shadow of the Erd Tree boss, the final boss, on a dance pad and game controller at the same time.
Okay, that's awesome.
Video? That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Mika.
Oh, I love that.
I gotta find that. That's gotta be like a TikTok
Anyway,
video or something.
Fantastic.
All right, we're gonna have Dean. We'll see you next week. We're gonna go ahead and finish up here. Mark, what are you playing?
Well, I found the 7th out of 8 objects in Animal Well, so I'm still in Animal Well. I only played a half hour a day, so it's been slow.
I saw you playing that on Steam. I saw it pop up. That's a really cool looking game. I haven't played it yet.
No, it is good, but and I'll keep plugging through that. But as I mentioned earlier, somebody, a friend of mine at Epic, Steve Isaacs, mentioned Lumberjack Heroes in an email thread, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" He's like, "I'm playing it nonstop." So I went in there, and it's totally a clicker. It's a clicker. It's an idle clicker game where you're like chopping down trees, and it has all the same like. Yeah, I played it for an hour and a half. All I did was like chop down trees. I swore never to play it again. But if you like that kind of game, you should. Yeah. Lumberjack Heroes inside of Fortnite. You'll see it.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I know you're playing Animal Well because
you see it pop up
all the time.
In the middle of the day. Isn't Mark supposed to be doing some work? Yeah, it's research.
Mark is doing work. That's exactly right. That is the research.
What are you playing, Chris?
I am still, I'm just going and dabbling through a bunch of the games that I picked up on Steam sale, including like the Panzer Dragoon remake and all that other stuff. My favorite game really to play while watching, TV and stuff is Power Wash Simulator. So I'm going through and cranking those levels, and it is just so stupidly satisfying.
This is what I always scorn Lanyon about this, and Lee keeps saying, "Stop scorning it. It's supposed to be really cool."
It is.
It's ridiculous.
No, it's awesome, and it's one of those things where you're like, oh, now it's so clean.
We had that in our Wallace and Gromit game. We had AR power washing of the Pie-mobile.
Oh, so what is it? Good for thee, but not for me? Is that what you're saying?
That's it, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
And then
what menial tasks can we gamify to have them be fun?
Like, it wasn't the whole game. The whole game was not washing a van.
Yeah, they have the electric.
Washing my dog simulator.
Well, they have an electrician simulator. They have a model building simulator. They have a PC simulator, which is really good because they use all licensed names, parts, and everything else. So it does teach you about construction stuff, and then it's like, oh, you're getting really good at cable layout and things like that. So
cable layout simulator. No,
yes,
that's a perfect one for it.
Yes. Yeah. And then this afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern, right? It's 3 o'clock. Yeah. I'm going to be sitting down and playing a bunch of old MS-DOS games.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
So we're going to be going through and checking out all that stuff, and ones that you go, oh,
like
no,
old
wait.
XCOM and stuff like that, or
oh yes, and it's things like, oh, do you have your enhanced memory expander loaded, or do you have high mem loaded? Because one won't work and one will, or do you have L1 cache on or off? Like, yes.
Wow.
So I'm going to play through a bunch of those, including like not play through them, but touch them, right? Like Prince of Persia and stuff like that.
You have a simulated turbo button to push?
Oh yeah, well yeah, of course you have to have a turbo button, for goodness sake, because yeah, I mean if not, then you don't have a real rig, right? So
yeah, what kind of place is this?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I've been playing. That's what we've been playing. And that's going to bring us to the end of Boss Rush again. Yay! Thanks, everybody, for making their way out this.
See you all.
It's wonderful to see you too. And I know it's late for you all. Also, the Olympics.
Yes.
It's kickoff today. So we'll be watching that. We'll be watching that tonight over here. But thanks, everybody, for joining. Make sure you let people know that we do this every Friday from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Dean, who's gone. And we'll see you next week on Boss Rush. Bye, gang.